those, what systems are we capturing, what are we doing about them, and how are we reporting that? That's the first thing. And what's the progress coming up? And that's going to be an enterprise-wide function: HR, supply chain, finance, marketing. And that's something boards are perplexed about, because one is not just.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks Series, brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And hello everyone, my name is Isabella. I'm the co-host of this talk series. I'm here with my co-host Manuel as well. Manuel, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, Yusuf, and thank you so much for giving us a bit of time to talk. We very excited to have you as a guest.
Pleasure, Manuel. Pleasure, Isabella. Thank you for inviting, and it's an opportunity and honor to be with your audience and with you guys. Let me know how I can help.
Of course, you have a lot of time to help in the following conversation. So Actionable ESG Talk Series bring together great minds to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And Yusuf did a very warm welcoming greeting already before I introduce him. So we're very glad to be here with our guest today, Yusuf Azizullah, who is CEO and the founder of G.B.A.C. It's known for Global Board Advisors Corp. It's a world-leading forum advising ESG investing billionaires, board of directors, and global 500 CEOs of the latest economic, social trends across the planet since 2010. Wow, since 2000, I would say since the beginning of ESG.
Yeah, we've been doing good work for a long time. So it's nice. Thanks.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Yusuf, for taking your time joining us today, and thank you to our audience as well for tuning in. To start a conversation, I'll let Manuel to kick off the talk.
Yusuf, and we have a standard question that we ask all our guests. And this is the big picture kind of question. And the question is, what are your thoughts and, of course, deep knowledge on current sustainability, ESG, and digital transformation trends?
Thanks. This is a very important topic. It's got more attention in COVID in the last couple of years, as disruption happened with supply chains, not only for public companies, but for private companies and across the planet. Thanks for inviting. And, we have I created a course and I'm authored or published on ESG on boardomeducation.com on just ESG and artificial intelligence. There's been a lot of people talking about artificial intelligence, but less people talking about ESG and how they interrelate. To answer your question, digital transformation with ESG, the sustainability factors, the environmental factors, the governance factors, and each rating agency is taking it from a different angle. These factors need to be captured from an enterprise, from an organization perspective. They are in very different systems, going to be captured to be reported. First we have to identify the data, then we need to massage the data, clean the data, see if it's relevant data, for these environmental factors, and then report on them, whichever framework you're using, GRI, SASB. And these disclosures not only are now become mandatory, in the United States, just in March, 2 months ago, mandatory requirements have been published. It was voluntarily, the Securities Exchange Commission. Now Canada followed its suit within 48 hours. European Union was in the lead from the beginning. So it's globally, and it's with the Paris Agreement, more than 190 countries have all signed up for this. So sustainability is globally a big high factor on radars of not only boardrooms and CEOs, but across the planet with millennials and Z, your workforce. So it's everybody's interested in it. The question is, what are we doing about it, and how are we reporting, with our stakeholders. And I'll take a pause here and let you ask a follow-up question.
Well,
Sure.
I know you're working a lot with board of directors, and by the way, I'll let Isabel ask the next question. What board of directors need to focus? I know you're working, you publishing, you supporting them, you are part of the board of directors as a fellow of I think the U.S. National Association of Board of Directors. What the board of directors need to focus on when it comes to ESG sustainability and digital transformation, and based on your experience with risks, I'll add, what risks should be the top of their minds?
Very good question. Thank you. Let me elaborate and take peel the onion a little bit. Let's go a little deeper. As I said in my earlier comment, there are different systems across the enterprise that's going to be looking at the environment, your water usage, your electric usage, the HR function might be your gender cap, your diversity, inclusion, how many women you have. Those are different factors and different studies, different data points, again, to understand. So from a board of director perspective, like when we have any organization, public or private, when you have a new ERP, a new server, a new ERP system being implemented, the board of directors gets updates on those ERP system, how's the implementation going, what's going on. The same way with ESG, sustainability, the board needs visibility. What systems are we capturing? What are we doing about them? And how are we reporting that? That's the first thing. And what's the progress coming up? And that's going to be an enterprise-wide function, HR, supply chain, finance, marketing, and that's something, boards are perplexed about, because one is not just one area. Before it used to be financial systems, the bottom line. And that's the board's visibility on the radar, the bottom line, how much we're making money. But with ESG, the paradigm has changed. These are non-financial factors. How do we capture them? And what are we doing about them, and how are we reporting them, and how are we exceeding on them? Because, benchmark the industries, every industry is getting disrupted with the artificial intelligence. Every industry is going from mining industries to tech industry to oil and gas. Every stakeholders are looking at what is your carbon emission, what are you doing about it, and the board needs visibility to that. Once we first identify it, then we can do something about it. First we have to figure out the things, and then what are we going to do about it is the next follow-up question, and that's some of the things to consider. Then, of course, most organizations are now in the cloud or venturing in the cloud. In the US, most organizations are in the cloud, but different regions in Africa, cloud is coming up, different countries, developing countries, they're venturing into the cloud. And the cloud gives you a nice playground for your tech teams, your IT folks to, use artificial intelligence to develop new innovative products, to bring down your sustainability, carbon emissions from your data center to your financial systems. Take a look at your electricity usage, your consumption, not from your data center only perspective, but there's a whole bigger gamut and a visibility. I think a couple of three advice, and end this question in that sense. The boardroom needs a scenario planning. They need visibility across C-suite. What are we doing in each function from a sustainability ESG system kind of factors? What are they capturing? What are they reporting? And then there needs to be a strategy. Most organizations, unfortunately, are doing carbon credits. We need to talk about carbon credits. Google is a prime example. They've brought down their whole carbon foot down with carbon credits. And European Union has been trading carbon emissions, and companies are selling carbon that are less carbon emitting to companies that are more carbon usage. So carbon credits is another market. But the question is, how is it really sustainable? Are they greenwashing? So the boardroom needs to have those discussions. Where are we going? Are we bringing down our carbon foot, or are we using carbon credits? That's a strategy discussion. to have within the boardroom and decide a path forward. I give a nice example. Many decades ago, Nokia, it's hard to believe Nokia was not a cellular company. They were in another industry. They sold out all of their products out of Nokia, and they went with the mobile, completely a new thing. And Nokia became Nokia. So a lot of companies have to decide from board perspective, are we getting out of certain geolocations? Are we cutting down some products and services because their carbon emissions are very high? Another example, just for fun, is tobacco. Can tobacco be sustainable? No, but a lot of countries use tobacco. So how do you bring down the tobacco? There's a bigger discussion needs to happen from a company perspective and then a boardroom perspective. Where are we now sitting in 2022, and where are we going the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years? A lot of companies have committed, more than 1,000 companies have committed to sustainability commitments of 2030, 2050 to bring down completely carbon neutral. And what strategy are they taking? Are they taking carbon credits? Are they really bringing down new products and services that are sustainable?
I think as they step through this process, they have first educate themselves. So you find out that AKFI, the education process, the initial education is critical because they deal with unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
And it's very complex for them to try to measure risks, to make strategic decisions and plans and so on. Excellent answer. And I'll turn it to Isabella for the next question. We're not going to let you off hook.
No, I'm here to help everybody who's paying attention, who wants to bring their sustainability.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, I was just thinking when you're talking, it just sounds very chaotic to me, to be honest. Like this whole process at very initial, is it because we're still at the initial early phase? Everyone's still trying to figuring out what other causes this kind of complex situation?
When you were saying this, it reminded me of recently MISCI, the one that does classifications for markets, emerging, development, so forth. MISCI sent a very nice study in the end of December 2021, and it's very nice. There are more than 34 global standard setters and regulatory bodies and reporting. So no wonder, the CEOs and the boards are like, what the heck do we do? Like, if the alphabets, they use the words, so I'm using their words again. It's the alphabets, do you use SASB? Do you use World Economic Forum? Do you use GRI? Which framework do you use in standard and reporting and guidance? And do we report in multiple? These are strategic questions that the board is forget the word hazy and daisy, chaotic. It's chaotic in how you figured it out. And that's why I created the course that I did on boardroom education to help, look at benchmark where we are globally, not only just US, and what are other countries, emerging and developed markets, doing in the sustainability efforts to bring down the carbon emissions? What are they reporting from public and private companies? What are the best practices right now till harmonization happens with these, frameworks that I said and standards and 34, SAS, BGR. And there is a lot of things that are happening. Like, let me talk about IFRS, the global accounting standard. You have either US GAAP, local GAAP, your whatever country you are in, or IFRS. More than 100 plus countries, 140 plus countries are, is the de facto standard IFRS. Even right now, when March, the United States actually did the mandatory disclosure requirement paper, CSC, immediately within a week, this is just a lightning effect, IFRS and GRI, the biggest framework used globally, started harmonizing themselves to bring alignment to their control frameworks and their reporting requirements. So there is global harmonization happening much faster than we think. In the next 10, in the decade, I wouldn't say 3-5 years, I would say 10 decade, we'll really have one kind of a framework, cross references you can report. But right now, most organization best practices, what I'm recommending in my, in my course and everything, is use multiple frameworks in the beginning years. And there's multiple wisdom to that. One is your stakeholders are different. If you're trying to impress your general public versus institutional investors, each framework caters to different audience, and so that's why a lot of companies have multiple frameworks, and then you have catch false positives. In the data and from a digital transformation perspective, you want to catch false positives. So those kinds of companies, best practice, what I recommend is companies for the beginning use GRI, SASB, and multiple frameworks in the baseline years to catch a baseline on your materiality assessments. and share that wisdom with your stakeholders, and find out what's the best practice, what do they think about it, and then capture and try to tie it with your executive compensation, because as it you said, chaotic, Isabella, it's absolutely chaotic. But from a company perspective, you need to tie it with executive compensation. This is what the large companies are doing to ESG targets, diversity, inclusion, gender pay, bringing down carbon emissions across functions. So your C-suite has to be accountable in front of the board of directors. And the best way to do it is to tie their executive compensation. The more sustainable the department or the division is, the more compensation they're going to get. Money attracts everybody. So it's hard to say, but that's the way the world moves. And they put the carrot in front of the people, and people go in that direction. So I think that's the best thing. The way to I'll say it. And feel free to ask me a follow-up question. Sorry, but you gotta have laughs.
We love laughs. Please make more fun.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely kind of touch on my following question a little bit,
Sure.
or maybe
Sure.
half of it about the best practices,
Sure.
the best way to train the C-suite, the executives, how
Sure.
to really implement the sustainability. From your decades of experience, you touch a little bit on that. If you have to name, let's say, top 3 or your most highly recommended frameworks at the moment, what are those?
GRI, because it's used most globally. In my paper, course, ESG, G.B.A.C certification for for ESG board certification. I benchmark with sustainable stock exchanges. Sustainable stock exchanges is just for reference for the audience, is a United Nations program for stock exchanges globally to participate in bringing down listed members and the sustainability in the markets. So, and they provide ESG guidance to their listed members, may it be bond, if you're trying to raise debt, or equity stocks list on your stock exchanges across the planet. And G.B.A.C found a study that we did, that from a global perspective, GRI is the largest framework used publicly. And most countries, more than 94 countries, are reporting on that. So that's the first thing from a framework perspective, I will say, best practices. Then comes SASB. SASB. What the top 3 things to make us think is, I would recommend, and that's in module 7, you bring a nice conversation to where should the chair of the board do, what should the C-suite do, as an action. And we made it very easy, 7 ABC steps. What's the first thing you should do is really materiality assessments. Create a baseline, figure out where we are. Before you can do anything, you got to figure out where the heck we are, right? In life. And so make a materiality assessment, and then share those assessment results with your stakeholders, larger stakeholders. I'm talking about your employees, your personnel. I'll give an example of Novartis that I use in the case study in my course. They have patients, they have doctors, they operate in multiple countries, 100 plus countries. So those kind of a multinational global companies, your stakeholders are larger, but then you have to localize the results of the materiality assessment with local jurisdictions, because South Africa, let's take an example. South Africa is a developing country, and their water shortage is much different, and their concerns are going to be much different than a European Western country. So electric usage and solar power. So you got to localize the results of the materiality assessments at your local jurisdictions and best practices, and see the feedback your stakeholders tell you. Do they agree with your top 3 risks, and where can you make the most impact? That's the second advice I would give you. You cannot, as this is such an evolving space, you cannot meet every criteria on ESG. That's just not there. You don't have the resources or the manpower, and then your stakeholders might not be interested in those factors that you think are important. So you have to discuss the results of the materiality assessment with your larger stakeholders, regulators, institutional investors, your patients. In Novartis case, that's what they did. They did every 4 years a study, and then every 2 years they revised the results of it. They did online surveys and employee surveys, and then they shared with the largest stakeholders. And based on the feedback, they prioritized their high priority priorities, and they made decision forward to go. And then they revise this assessment every 4 years. So because just look in the past 2 years, how much COVID has changed the world completely, and from a digital transformation perspective, to try to back to your thing, most organizations have really accelerated it in the beginning of COVID 2020, whatever their IT goals were in the 2020. And so now we're in a fast track to really put technology as the center of everything. I always say technology is the innovation of glue, the glue of innovation. And digital transformation, the cloud governance, the security, the essence of it, making sure your data privacy of your consumers, your stakeholders, your third party, your supply chains is kept private, secure and private. That's a board governance topic. Key things that you need to focus: materiality assessment, results of the materiality assessments. Top 3 things you can focus on. You cannot focus on everything, and then make the most impact for your stakeholders. And the other thing I would say, based on industry, an oil industry and the mining industry is going to have a different priority versus a healthcare or a tech industry company. So you have to look within your industry, where your industries are, where your peers are, and what the most impact for your industry is. And of course, you have to localize it based on jurisdiction. My example of South Africa versus a Western country, or United States and Canada. And I'll end it there. You are welcome to reach me. I'm on social media. Go check our page, boardroom Board Advisors. Reach me and ask me, because I get pulled into conversations and help figure out the board and the CEO what to do, what to focus, what not to focus on. Best practice from Big Four, industry leaders, World Economic Forum. I've been privileged to publish with World Economic Forum and corporate governance. So that's just a humble little plug about me, and I apologize about that. But feel free to ask whatever you need to ask, and I'll leave more questions for you guys.
No need to apologize, and if you provide us with a short 1 page to fit something about you and how they can reach you, and put it at the beginning of this conversation. And since we are at the plugs, in the plus section of our discussion, also wanted to bring forward Isabella's upcoming book. We hope very shortly. And Isabella, maybe you give us a very quick look on how the book plays into the sustainability and what we call it, the digital mind of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, appreciate. Thank you for giving me this time. Yeah, very briefly, my book is more about the culture, the digital culture of the future of the humanity as a consequences of technology involvement. So I see ESG and all this it's a big mix blending together that we need to figure out together. So I found both are very relevant topic. So it's a great pleasure to hear everything you mentioned today to trigger me some interesting thoughts.
My pleasure. And if you need help on the book or a review, be happy to, Isabella, support you in your efforts. Absolutely, because you share knowledge and let people that are doing outstanding work support them. So thank you for inviting me here. I have to your platform. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the honor. Yes.
A quick last summary question, which typically we end the interview, but we were so generous with the information you gave us that you almost answered it. But I want a one-line summary. And what are your thoughts on the progress in this rapidly unruly ESG changing world?
Clarify a little bit from you. From whose perspective? That's
From your personal perspective, from
my personal perspective.
Exactly.
That's a very good question. Very good question. I'm happy. I'll give you. You brought me something, reminded me. Al Gore, who sits on the Apple board of directors, is been involved with the World Economic Forum for many, many years. The first year I got published with World Economic Forum was 2014. 15, 14 becoming 15, the November-December area of 2014. World Economic Forum had never, ever done, and you can look at the data, ever brought environmental sustainability as top 10 risks before that year. The year I gave, and I had shared my paper, my information with the board of directors. I had been working with the World Economic Forum. They were based, and they put that year the environmental sustainability as a top 10 risk for the global planet from that year. From that time, following Al Gore's movie, I'm a big fan of him. I work with a lot of tech giants, Apple, Google, Microsoft. If you just Google my name and you'll see lots of pictures of me with them. I've been fortunate and humbled for them to advise them. They're not paying customers, but they take a look at my thought leadership. They look at my ideas, and take it very candidly. So what I will share with you is, as two things. From that time to now, the progress has been phenomenal in the last decade, just in the 5-10 years we saw more progress now versus the last 30-50 years on sustainability. That's one good thing. That's personal pet peeve, so I'm happy about that. And that's a good question. The second thing is, from a corporate education point of view, board of directors education and C-suite education, something I've been fortunate, my global board of advisors, is we are an AACSB. That's the highest accreditation for a business school. Less than 5% on the planet have that executive education MBA accreditation. We're not accredited by them for MBAs or PhDs, but we are authorized to give certificates and are really a standing certification. So the course that we designed, the people that are going to go through those courses, board directors and rising stars and the C-suite and career-minded people, they will create a new force that I'm happy about, create a new force of sustainability people that are going to know what to do from a sustainable perspective, from an ESG perspective, and go work in environments and profit, non-profit, public-private corporation, and they're going to increase the sustainability knowledge base of those organizations and really turn the tide, hopefully, in our lifetime to really bring down the carbon emissions of the planet. Hopefully, the purpose of doing this, I don't do anything if I didn't enjoy it, and I want to leave my children and my grandchildren, hopefully, a better planet than I came into, and from a sustainability perspective, from a government perspective, that's why I'm so honored for you guys to invite me to as a nonprofit that you're promoting ESG from a certain digital transformation, and that's why I wanted to take the time to come here and share the knowledge. I'm blessed to work with the largest boards on the planet and give them advice, paying ones, and I charge a good fee for it. Don't get me wrong. So, but this is nonprofit, so I love the sharing knowledge, because the more you share knowledge about sustainability, somebody's going to take those ideas and say, "Oh my God, I should do it." And I'll end it with Larry Fink, BlackRock, the largest asset manager on the planet. With more than 7 trillion, 6 trillion. Just keep counting. The trillions keep going up every quarter. So he said something very nice. The next unicorn, the next billion-dollar company is going to be the one who solves the sustainability conundrum, this chaotic, what you're covering in your book, Isabella, and what you're bringing to the sharing the knowledge with your organization. So I want to be one of those leaders and support leaders that are going to solve this sustainability conundrum, the puzzle, and help advise some good points. If you take 2-3 points from here and help your career, I think I've done a good job at the end of the day. And the same way, the course, it will give you some really good insights from a global perspective. We'll benchmark with US, Canada, Australia, more than 60 plus markets. And I've gone down with the boards and directors, sat down and shared knowledge. This is what I'm doing. This is what we think we should be doing. And I've got great feedback for the year and a half that it took me to get to this point. It was a painful journey. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't recommend it to the faint-hearted, but we went through this painful exercise, and now we have the results there for people to take advantage of. And I'm sharing the results with you guys on this interview. So hopefully it helps the planet. Thank you.
Amazing.
So we would love to hear more and more today, but let's continue with our next opportunity to a talk. And I'll turn it back to Isabella. I'm sorry, go ahead, Yusuf.
Something you made me think, maybe we do a quarterly every 6 months, kind of a catch back, what's happened from now versus 6 months from now, and catch back. So invite me.
Sure.
I'd love to come.
That'll be a progress story, work in progress, which sustainability clearly is, and digital transformation as well.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it to
really fast.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Very, very good, very, very good suggestion. And yes, we should follow up with you and actually with our other visitors, other guests. Isabella, I'll turn it back to you for a final word.
Sure. Really enjoy your conversation, Yusuf. I can see you have much more to share and love to have you back. And we can do this periodically to keep our audience updated as well. And one more time, thank you so much for taking the time joining us today, and thank you all, our dear audience, for being here. Make sure to tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talk Series, and you will gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrate ESG and digital transformation. Well, until the next time, goodbye for now from Isabella and
Thank you. Bye bye.